a short story, part of the class. His name is What is Right? I am still not sure it was a mistake, to tell you the truth. I loved them, my family. I also loved my second family. They both loved me. It was a strange thing, being loved by two families, and yet I couldn't imagine my life any other way. It was scary at first, sure. I mean, I cried for days, but I loved them too. I know now what they were trying to do. Were they right? I am not sure. I know some will view it right, and yet others will view it wrong. Under what circumstances will it be viewed as right? How do we judge what is right or what is wrong? Some people say we base it on the Bible, the Ten Commandments. Others say we learn morals through higher learning and evolutionary processes. I am dead because of choices made for me. I am not bitter towards the people who made them, for I know that they had my best interests in mind. I believe I was 6 when taken from my first family, only 6. I remember my mother sitting on the old rotting davenport with her boyfriend. I was in the corner playing with a shit-covered cloth doll. It was my only toy. I named her Margaret. Margaret and I did everything together, as long as we did it quietly. We were not supposed to bother Mother or her boyfriends. Yes, I said that correctly. Every week she would have a new boyfriend. None of them treated her nicely. Not like a lady or even a girl. They treated her like an oven. They put their junk in it, turned it on, and once done, not needed anymore. I remember her coming home with this white guy, easily 10 years older than her, tattoos all over his body, and I mean everywhere. His chest was leopard, and on his back were angel wings. All the way up his legs were flames, and on either side of his face was an eagle tattooed. On his wrists were snakes winding all the way down his fingers. On his biceps, which were saggy, were razor wires going all the way around. His teeth were slightly yellowed, and he had all kinds of scars up his arms, puncture holes. They would both lie down on the rotting couch while I was in there. The couch was flea-infested. Every time you sat down on it, you saw them jump. I've even seen mold growing on it occasionally. Soon, the man would sit up and hand my mom some white powder stuff. I asked what it was once. She said flour. The stuff bread is made out of. I wondered why she didn't make bread out of it, though. Instead, she would always sniff it up her nose and act funny afterwards. Well, back to the night this one boyfriend was there. He handed my mom the flour, and then he saw me. I am guessing he didn't know I was there before. "Shit, woman," he shouted to my mom. "You didn't tell me you had a baby girl here." "She's fine, she understands," my mom had said to him, crawling up against him, trying to pull him back down. She was acting strangely, which was usual after she sniffed the flour. "Get her the hell out of here. You don't get no more till she's gone. Please, we had a deal," my mother would cry, "and a little girl watching was not part of it." The man then slapped my mother across the face, making her fall down on the rotting and moldy carpet she had found in a dumpster a few weeks back. The man then came at me, his face red and his eyes were crazy. He had sniffed some of the flour too. I realized that if just the flour of the bread did this to you, what would the actual bread do? I never wanted to eat bread after the moment I saw him. He picked me up and threw me across the room, yelling at me to beat it. Margaret was still in the corner, though. I had dropped her. I went back to get her, but the man kicked me to the floor like I was nothing more than a rag doll myself. "Beat it," I said, "little girl. Before I do you, too," he shouted at me. I didn't know what he meant back then when it happened, but my mother went ballistic. "You lay one of your shitty fingers on her and I will tear your damn head off." He looked at her and smiled, picked me up by my pants, and my mother attacked him, clawing at his face with her fake fingernails. She tore his skin open under his eyes, and she shouted such words in such a volume and in such a rage that I grabbed Margaret and ran to the furthest corner of the room and curled up. The man bashed my mom against the wall. She screamed in pain. I shouted out to her. "You're next, you little shit," the man said, pointing to me. I hid behind Margaret. She was braver than I was. My mom screamed and attacked him again. The fight went on for what seemed like hours. My mother was bruised and sprawled out on the floor, moaning in pain. The man was standing over her, smiling, wiping some blood off his lip. He spit on my mother and looked at me. He flashed his yellow teeth at me and started coming towards me. Just then, the door bashed in and police officers came running into the room. I hated police officers. My mother was always telling me how they put her in jail once and how they're all power hungry and think they are above the law. The man saw them, took one look, and then charged at me. He never reached me. I felt a warm spray of liquid over my body as he fell to the floor, dead. I had heard a loud noise and saw a policeman had fired a shotgun at the man. I thought I was going to be next and screamed. They had come to kill us all. Another officer came and put a blanket over my mom to cover her nude body and then put her on a mobile bed. They didn't shoot her. I looked at one of the officers' faces and into his eyes. I didn't see hate there like I thought I would have. Instead, I saw horror, anger, and sorrow. Sorrow was the greatest of all the things I saw. It confused me. I screamed when they grabbed me and took me out of the room. I woke up in a hospital bed. I saw some doctors talking and heard them mention my mother's name and frown. One shook his head. I thought she was dead, but she wasn't. No, she had made it through with just some minor cuts and bruises, albeit a lot of minor cuts and bruises. The doctor that shook his head, I found out later, was a psychiatrist. He said my mother was not fit to have me return to her. When they went into the room, I heard my mother scream as they told her, scream in anger and fear of losing me, her only daughter. I went to all the court hearings as I was removed from my mother's custody. I often wondered what right does someone have to take away a mother's child that she would give her life for? Did they do the right thing, or are they just trying to separate a family? My mother's pleading fell on deaf ears, and I was taken from her and put into foster care. A family was found for me rather quickly, 4 weeks. They seemed nice enough. They had 2 children already, and they became my siblings. I had an older brother by a year and a younger sister by a year. I still had to go to all my therapy sessions, of course, but something about my new parents made me curious. When I looked into their eyes at night and they would tuck me in, I saw the same 3 things in their eyes that I did in the police officers: horror, anger, and sorrow. Sorrow drowning out the other 2. It was weird and I did not understand it at all. They would read me a story and kiss me every night. On Christmas, we would all get gifts. I got 5 new dolls and some new clothes. They even started homeschooling me. I spent countless hours around my new mother, and, in a way, I grew to love her. She helped me learn to read and write, helped me with math and science. I learned so much because of her, and when my adoptive dad came home, he would let me sit on his lap while telling me great stories of people long gone. Then I grew up. I went to college, got a degree, and became, of all things, a police officer. That is why I am dead. I went charging into a room like the one I was hiding in to save a child and mother from an abusive boyfriend, except this time, the boyfriend was ready with a 12-gauge shotgun loaded with buckshot. I look in the corner of the small apartment room to see a little girl cowering in the corner. The little girl is me, and I hear the noise of the shotgun blast and feel the spray of blood, and all is quiet. I love both my mothers and my father that I knew very much. More than the world, I love them. But in my last moments, I must ask, did they do the right thing taking me away from my first mother?